Yo, what is up, YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to talk about why I decided to buy a house in Austin, Texas, and share my own personal experience and story for how I made this all happen. Now, for a little bit of background and context, this is not my primary residence. This is my first ever rental property that I purchased out of state. I live here in California, and the property is obviously in Texas, and it was quite a journey. I actually flew there one winter to visit a friend and got an Airbnb in Austin. Got connected with a local agent who kind of showed me around the place, and found a place that I really liked. Actually, the funny part of it is when I actually went to the site, there was actually no house. It was just a big plot of land. There was dirt everywhere, and the builder was kind of selling me on this dream, right? And I was looking at some of the photos, and I liked the design of the house. But I also knew that, this house wouldn't last very long because there was obviously a huge wait list and a lot of people who were trying to put down security deposits for these houses. So I knew it wasn't going to last. And that's why I put my money down and bought it on the spot without even looking at the house. So, it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to bite down and make a decision without really having a lot of information. But ultimately, it paid off. The house has appreciated quite a bit. And right now it's being rented out to a great tenant who, pays on time and is great with the neighbors, and just wanted to kind of share my reasons for why I decided to buy an investment property in Texas in the first place, because hopefully it can maybe give you guys some insights for the next opportunity, whether it's Austin or maybe it's somewhere else. So the first reason why I decided to buy a house in Austin was that I actually wanted to go through the whole home buying process. Like I said, this was my first house, didn't have any experience whatsoever. And just going through that whole process was a big learning experience that I wanted to actually do. And so when I actually found a good opportunity where the numbers made sense, I bought the place. If you look at the buying process for a house, right, there's a lot that goes into it. And this is just sort of one example, but, you have to go through the pre-approval process. You have to speak to a lender. You have to address any credit issues you might have. And the steps in buying a house, there's a lot that goes into it. You have to be able to make an offer. You have to negotiate. You have to find and connect with an agent. You also have to do your due diligence on the house itself and go through an inspection process. And there's also a pre-closing and title process to make sure that, the house has everything that you need. And that when you go through the closing, there's also a lot of documents that you need to sign with the notary. And so there's just a lot of things that goes into the home buying process that I wanted to experience myself firsthand. And this rental opportunity was sort of the perfect chance for me to learn on a property that wasn't going to be catastrophic if I made a major mistake. Now, the second reason why I decided to buy a house in Austin is that I also wanted to get hands-on experience being a property manager. If you go and look at the property manager responsibilities, there's a lot that goes into it, right? You have to set the rent. You have to collect the rent. You also have to screen tenants and make sure that they're not crazy psychos who won't pay on time or will damage the house. You also have to maintain the property. You have to connect with a lot of other local contractors and even the builder, because if something goes wrong, you're also going to have to make those decisions to whether to fix it or repair it. And you also have to manage a budget, right? There's a lot of different skills that comes with being a property manager. And it's not that I want to be a property manager forever, but I wanted to get that hands-on experience and do it myself for at least the first year. And that's exactly what I've done. Being a property manager is not easy. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But I think it's also an important skill if you want to have multiple rental properties, or let's say if you're just trying to find a good property manager, what to look out for, what questions to ask. And that's one of the reasons why I also wanted to buy a house in Austin, is to get that hands-on experience being a property manager myself. Now, the third reason is that I just knew that Austin was a hot market. And this was probably the biggest reason of all for why I decided to buy in Austin and not somewhere else. If you look at the Austin housing market, it's been setting records all over the place. Honestly, it's getting to the point now where it's very difficult for locals to buy because it's just outpricing so many people. Right here, it says that the housing prices have jumped nearly 28% since February 2021 to $500,000. And this is just one particular area, but across the board, especially in Austin, because Austin is such a desirable place in Texas, so many people want to move there. And that's what's ultimately driving up the demand for housing. But really, the main reason for why I decided to invest in Austin was because back in 2020, I think the summer or late 2020, HP, Oracle, Tesla, Apple, Samsung, Facebook, Google, all of these major tech firms started to announce that they were building offices, relocating jobs, creating new jobs. And to me, this was the perfect signal that Austin was going to grow. People ultimately move where the jobs are. So in the future, if you see tech companies making these announcements and saying that they're going to move to XYZ, that's a sign that demand for housing in those areas are going to increase. Now, I know in the pandemic, a lot of people were working from home, working remotely, but I think a lot of companies are now starting to ask people to come back. Moving forward, I think companies are going to allow for more hybrid or more flexible work schedules. I think they're still going to want people to be in the office part of the week. That's why I think it's very important to know where the big companies are going, or even smaller companies like startups, where they're going and growing, because that's ultimately what's going to drive a lot of the demand in those local areas. Now, are there downsides to having an investment property in Austin? Of course. Now, remote management, it's definitely tough. It's not easy to do. And having done it myself for the first year, my plan ultimately, I think, is going to outsource and find a good property management company in the area who can do it for me. Now, obviously, hiring a property manager is going to impact my cash flow, but the amount of time that I'll save not having to manage it myself is ultimately going to be worth it. Now, the other thing you have to think about with real estate in Texas is that the property tax rates are much, much higher, anywhere from 2.5% to 3.5%, depending on the area. So you're going to be paying a lot in property taxes. Also, another downside is that there's also a lot of uncertainty. What if that we get into an economic recession and a lot of the growth plans and the job plans in Texas are not going to be what it is? But these are sort of out of your control. These are unpredictable. And so there's only so much you can do. Also, the recent shortages in labor and materials have also led to a lot of delays. Now, the other downside of buying in Austin is that there's a lot of builders who are looking to take advantage of the buyers. There's a lot of bidding wars. They're also cutting corners to finish jobs quicker. And so I think the quality of a lot of the houses now could potentially be impacted because builders are now getting super greedy, thinking that they can profit off of these houses. And so who knows, some of the houses later on might not be what they should be. Anyways, those are some of the downsides, but there's also a lot of upsides with owning a rental property. And I think the key is going to be identifying the next hot market to invest in. Who knows, tomorrow it might be Austin, it might be Atlanta. But I think the key for me and the signal that's the most important is the job growth. Where are the companies going? Where are the companies expanding? That's really going to give you an indication and a signal to invest in certain key areas. Anyways, guys, those are some of the reasons why I decided to buy a house in Austin. Honestly, if I could go back and do it all over again, I probably would have bought two, because considering how much the first one appreciated, which I think when I bought it back in 2020, it was around 360. And I think the last time I checked on Zillow was around 511. Which is quite an increase. The housing values are going to continue to probably go up. And so I wish I bought a second one, but you can't be too greedy. And ultimately, what really gave me the confidence to buy and invest in Austin was that I physically went there. It's great to do your own research. It's good to look at virtual tours and connect with agents remotely, but ultimately going there physically and being there in person and actually looking at the builders and talking to them face to face and actually looking at the houses yourself is what's going to give you the edge. And so that's kind of my advice for you guys. If you're thinking about investing, let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this video was insightful or valuable to you guys, and I'm definitely going to be investing again, but once the market cools down, because I think it's a little bit crazy right now. Drop a like if you enjoyed the content, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.